Welcome to another Optimal Game State episode. This weekend we had 4 new warbands for Warcry go up for pre-order. They're all available right now on the website. For some you might need to hunt a little bit, but they aren't due for release until the 21st of October. So I have a little bit of time to get through all 4. Unlike with Kill Team, Warcry warbands do not instantly sell out. And when they do go out of stock, it's usually not that long before they're back. So we have a little bit of time to explore these warbands and work out whether they'd be fun to play and whether you should pick them up. Do remember that it is a good idea to have some weak warbands in your collection, along with the strong ones. While competitive events tend to be focused on having the best list facing off against each other, if you're looking for a fun game, you can have weaker warbands facing off against each other, or you can play the weaker warband against a new player who doesn't yet know all the strategies and tactics. So if you like the look of a warband, pick it up and paint it. Even if it gets some bad reviews, there is a place for everything. That is not the case for the warband we're looking at today. The Kruleboyz Monsta-killaz are definitely a good warband. This is a box of 8 fighters in total with a few head variants as bonus options. There's one Beast Knob as the leader, a Baller Boy who can have a dagger or whip, a Clutcher Grot, 2 Gnarlwood Howlers, and then 3 neck slicers, 2 of which can have a polearm, 1 a club, and all 3 can have a harpoon instead. Looking at the average damage plot, the Beast Knob is expensive, but you're getting a lot of kill for your points. When it comes to damage, most of these fighters are sitting in the upper section of the plot. For wounds, they're pretty much bang on with the curve. I tend to look for about 3 wounds per 25 points, and based on the plot, I think we're going to be sticking pretty close to it. There are 3 abilities that are pretty much warband wide. The double and quad do require the Trapper rune mark, but only the Howlers are missing it. The first ability is the reaction Cruel Trap. After an enemy ends a move within 6 inches, you can trigger this reaction. You roll a die, and on a 1 to 4, the ability does 2 damage. On a 5 or 6, you get to pick between doing 4 damage or stopping the enemy from making move actions for the remainder of the turn. That's pretty rough if they were trying to make a double move, and as the range of the ability is 6 inches, that's likely to get a lot of targets. Notably, this doesn't stop the enemy from making a disengage action, although they can only take that if they're already in melee range of an enemy. It's also worth mentioning that in addition to taking up an action or a point renown, only 1 reaction can be taken to any action. So if you have 2 or more Monsta-killaz ready to react to an enemy who just moved, only 1 of them can do it. That said, we should already be thinking about that nice Blessing Spite, which would give you a free reaction each turn for 30 points. Moving on to the double, we have Cruel Stabbing. This adds 1 to the damage of hits and crits if the target already has taken some wounds. Whether this is going to be better than Universal Double Onslaught, which gives an extra attack die, will really depend on the profile of the attacking weapon. Usually, this will be better when you have more attack dice, which is a nice change from Onslaught, which usually is better when you've got fewer attack dice. Then we have the quad Nasty Muggin. Pick an enemy within 1 inch, and every Monsta-killer within 3 inches gets to make a free attack if they can. It's a solid alternative to Rampage. Typically using Rampage on your biggest threat is going to be optimal. So you get to move, and then attack, and then you actually use their normal actions to attack. But situationally, Nasty Muggin can be a better choice. If you've got more of your Monsta-killaz beside the target, you can actually squeeze out some additional damage out of it. Speaking of threats, let's talk about the Beast Knob. Under all the kit somewhere is an orc. It's move 4 and toughness 4, which is kind of standard. The 25 wounds is just above the expected curve of 3 per 25. It's over by just 1. The melee damage is fantastic with 9.33 average, all the way up to toughness 5. He's actually up there with the Mega Boss, who has 10 damage for 25 more points. It's a quite good place to be, and this is move 4, unlike the Mega Boss's move 3. He does have a range option, which is a pretty paltry value, but 8 range means he can attack things he couldn't otherwise get to, and he'll do around 5 damage in total over the 2 attacks. His special ability is the double Cruel Taunt. It's limited in range by the value of the ability, so it's at max going to be 6 inches. For the rest of the round, while the target is attacking anyone except the Beast Knob, they get -2 damage to hits and crits to a minimum of 1, which is pretty rough. It's likely this fighter is your killer, so really you want to be using abilities which will get even more kill out of the Beast Knob. That said, this ability does have the potential to completely neuter a target and force them into your Beast Knob if they want to do anything at all. This could be game winning depending on the victory condition. Overall, the Beast Knob is a fantastic fighter. I'd be tempted to drop the Spite Blessing on him, which would make him 230 points, which is pretty expensive, but it would mean a free Cruel Trap each turn. Next up we have the Neck Slicers, of which there are 3 options and 3 in the box. The first is the Smasher, which is really straightforward and still somehow great. Toughness is a little bit lower at 3, I guess these Swamp Orcs don't really have much armor. Move is 4, which is good, and Wounds is 15. It's a little over what you expect for points. Damage is fantastic, and it actually squeezes into the top 10 of the most efficient fighters for destruction, pushing the Beast Knob out to number 11. It is melee range, and with this list you kind of prefer a little bit of reach to take advantage of the reaction, but that'll only happen on a 5+, so it's probably not worth building the entire warband around it. The Smasher is simple and gets the job done. There's only 1 in the box, so I would suggest making them. Then 2 of the fighters can be made with the Bone Hacker. This is pretty nice. It's range 2, but it's still doing a fantastic 5 average damage. 10 points more, but you're getting an extra ability as well. The Berserker rune mark opens up the triple Saw Them Up. It's a bit of a weird one, so bear with me. You pick an enemy fighter within 2 inches, so within hacker range. Then look at the value of the triple, so for the triple 1, triple 2, triple 3, so on. Then roll that number of dice. Have a look at the new values and see if you can group them into a chain, so a 2 and a 3, a 3 and a 4, or 2, 3 and 4. Best case example you're going to get is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And in addition to yelling Yahtzee, you get to do an insane 18 damage, which is 3 for each dice in the chain. The value of the triples are hard to control, and this is high randomness even after you've got a good roll. I think if I had a triple 6, I'd give it a shot just to see what the dice say. Although if you're the kind of player who the dice gods hate, maybe it's something you should stay clear of. The last weapon option for the Neck Slicers is the Harpoon. I think this is the first fighter I've seen where the melee and the range profiles are the same, which is quite interesting. It means you can use Onslaught when you're in close with the spear, but still have the range option the rest of the time. I do tend to undervalue range attacks, so it's good to remind myself that 2 range attacks are often the equivalent of a move and attack action. Here, that would mean 6 average damage, which is quite good. The ability is a double, which will add a little bit more damage if at least 1 hit is scored. But only 2 dice, chances aren't great, and remember crits don't count for that. Based on that, I'm tempted to pass on this ability, although there will be times to use it. Given the reaction of this warband, fighters that can attack at range are fantastic, as you can give up the action for a reaction and still attack without having to move. I could definitely see a warband where you went with the Harpoon on all of your Neck Slicers, and it could be really, really good. That said, I'm probably a little bit more in love with the Bone Hacker and its reach of 2, so I think I'd probably go in that direction instead. Last of the Aurochs, we have the single Brawler Boy. This can be built in 2 ways, with a dagger or with a whip. I suggest going with a whip, as the damage difference seems negligible and whips are cool. With 5 attacks, the double Cruel Stabbing to give +1 hits and crits does seem like a good option, and will bring the Flogger up to a damage of 5. He comes with a pretty niche ability. Nearby enemy fighters cannot use reactions. We saw this with the Claws of Karnok, who have a similar ability. There are probably some matchups, maybe where it could be good, but a lot of times spending a triple like this ends up a waste, as your opponent just keeps the actions they would otherwise have spent on reactions and finds a better way to use them. I think this is probably the weak point in the warband, and I'd be tempted to drop the Brawler Boy once I kind of started to establish the warband. Then onto the stars of this warband, the Norwood Howlers. Norwood has been a pretty interesting setting so far, and I'm delighted to see them doubling down with fighters like this. No doubt they will get some Age Sigmar rules, but this is very much a Norwood warband. For 125 points, we get a really nice 6 speed, 3 toughness, and a above average 18 wounds. Damage is fantastic at 5. Raw stats, they've got a lot going for them. They're very similar to a Spire Stalker from the Corvus Cabal, but the Howlers are +1 move, +3 wounds, although 1 less toughness, but still that's all for 5 less points. That's really good. There is a kicker, of course. They do have the Beast rune mark, which means no carrying treasure and no opening doors. They've got Oryx do that for them, so it's not too much bother. Last up we have the Clutcher Grot, protecting the egg like the good little Grot he is. Not much to say, 60 points isn't super cheap, but it's actually a decent stat line for it. He's probably going to move in a position and then spend all of his actions as reactions, being a total menace. Out of the box, I think going for 2 hackers and a smasher, we then hit 970 points exactly, which is just enough to add that Blessing of Spite onto our Beast Knob so we can get that 1 free reaction each turn. Perfection. Of course, double check to make sure if you are able to take blessings, you're not always guaranteed to be allowed to take them in events. If we were to add some extra options, we always have the big scary destruction heroes like the Tyrant or the Mega Boss. But honestly, the Beast Knob is probably up there and will probably make a really good option for the other warbands. If you're looking for something cheaper, you probably need to look at the Bladeborn options so you can get some cheap fighters in. The Cunning Crew might be an option, given some extra nets. Similarly, Zarbag will give you Drizgit, Snurk and Frog, who are all fantastic goblins. Overall, this looks like a fantastic warband and a lot of fun to play. If this warband is something you like the look of, keep an eye out for the upcoming White Dwarf 483, which will have the background and narrative details for the Monsta-killaz and the Vulcan Flameseekers. I do think this is a warband that will be strong out of the box, although the real question is what proxy model you should use for the Beast Knob when you go for the Beast Knob and 6 Howler all monkey warband. Thanks for making it all the way to the end. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Each week I put up a new video talking about one of Games Workshop's specialist games. The goal is always to try and make the best possible 2-player experience. If this is something you'd find interesting, please subscribe to the channel and comment to let me know what you'd like to see in future.